Okay, let me call this council meeting to order and all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, thank you. All right, first turn it over to our treasurer, Carlo, and walk us through the monthly financial report.
Thank you, Barney. So the financial report that's in the packet shows the expenditures through November of this year. So November's 5 months in to the fiscal year. So it's about 42% of the total time. I'm going to start with expenditures first and then go to the revenue second. So on the expenditure side of things, for the non-capital category, we have spent about 38% of our annual budgeted amount for non-capital. So that's tracking nicely with the calendar. On the capital side, we've spent through November about $107,000 or roughly 12.5% of our $853,000 annual budget for capital expenditures. And then turning to the revenue side very quickly, as I've said last few meetings, it's November when we get the first big tax receipt, and the amount that we received is $1,324,349, which is a very solid number. And it also sort of sets it fixes the amounts that we will get for the next two quarterly payments. So those quarterly payments are estimated at about just under $705,000. So in aggregate, we are tracking nicely to meet our annual budget revenue target. Mention one other thing, and then I'm going to ask Todd to expand a little bit on the sort of tax receipt process. The materials indicate that the revenue we've received so far this year is at 49% of budgeted revenue. That actually, because we got a grant payment that was expected in the prior fiscal year of $226,000, but it came in just last month, the correct percentage against budgeted revenue is 45% rather than 49%. So hopefully that isn't too confusing. And with that, I'll just invite Todd, if he would, to say a little bit more about the tax receipts and your forecast overall for revenues for the rest of the fiscal year.
Sure. Thanks, Carlo. Yeah, by my estimation, I run some calculations based on estimates that are provided by the state. We know, as Carlo indicated, our February and May distribution will be 704,529. There was an anomaly in FY25 where we received in May more than the recurring distribution wasn't expected to be. It was expected to be, but not, albeit not by much. However, if we anticipate a recurring distribution in February and May of like just under 705, I anticipate we budgeted 3.4 million in income tax revenue for FY26. I would expect that we would receive between 3.6 and 3.8. So above what we budgeted for income tax receipts in this fiscal year. And as Carlo indicated, we did receive the final disbursement or reimbursement from Department of Natural Resources as part of the program Open Space Fund or grant program. We budgeted that reimbursement to come in FY25. However, given the length of the Zimmerman Park project and then the ensuing time it took to get the reimbursement from the state, we received that in the current fiscal year, which is why the percentage of budgeted operating revenue we've received to date is around 45% rather than 49%. Hopefully that makes sense, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions from the council? Thank you, Todd.
This happens for everyone's benefit. November is the key month, both because of the large payment and because it forecasts what we'll receive. And
February, May, and also June, because 60% of the February, May payments also come in June. And then there's stuff on top of that, which Todd was referring to, that gets us over the estimated. So yeah, it puts us on a solid position for the rest of this year in terms of revenues. It's great. Good. Thank you. With that, I will go ask Todd to give us a town manager's report.
Sure. Thanks, Barney. I'll review some of the key initiatives undertaken by staff over the past month, or less than a month, since we met on November 19th and we had the ensuing Thanksgiving holiday. But the staff spent a considerable amount of time doing due diligence and reviewing potential speed camera vendors and contracts that we could bridge with other municipalities in Maryland. We also met with Corso officials to discuss the status of the project and plans for the town's temporary garage. On the latter point, we had the temporary garage delivered today. So fortunately, just in time for any snow events we might get to cover our truck and have it be operational during winter storms. With respect to the status of the Corso project, we met with some of the Corso representatives and were informed that despite 6 months of due diligence with the lender they had in Great Britain, Corso decided to walk away from that lender due to lack of assurances they were receiving from that lender in terms of their willingness to close in a timely way. I was informed that they have identified other lenders that they are working with, specifically one they're targeting Q1 of 2026, first quarter of 2026, for a new loan to close, likely in February. They have no concerns about having this project financed. They were actually looking to finance 3 different projects with the loan they were looking to close with the lender in Great Britain for close to about $1 billion. However, this project itself is somewhere in the range of 350 to 450 million as part of that 1 billion loan they were looking to close. Like I said, they're targeting Q1 2026, likely around February, to close on a loan, and they did extend their land loan with Eagle Bank until April because of this delay in getting a lender for the project and others that they were looking for. So a bit of a delay in this project, but not anything significant based on the lengthy timeline it's taken to develop plans and obtain permits and ultimately to get a loan. With respect to the permits, they did indicate they're very close to receiving their building permits from the county, likely in the next few weeks, at least by the end of the year. And so they'll be ready to go in earnest once they close on their loan. Staff also completed a speed study on East Avenue and reinstalled the radar speed board in that location. We prepared for fall tree planting. We're planting 84 trees this fall, 36 on private property, 48 on public property. We did purchase most of the equipment for temporary dog park events in Zimmerman Park. We're waiting for some prefabricated gates to be delivered. However, given the weather and the forecast, it probably looks like we're going to be waiting till the spring to hold any of these events. We'll need to set it up, ensure that it operates appropriately, and that it's sufficient for these events. And so I don't know if we'll be doing that in December, given the weather, or we'll wait until early spring. Staff also began planning for the FY27 budget. We continued supporting holiday donation and gift drives undertaken by a number of committees, and we provided project to support to town committees. And that concludes the staff report.
Okay, thank you, Todd. Are there any questions of Todd?
Yeah, I just have one.
Sure.
Does the Corso development mean that they have stopped work?
So work has been stopped for quite some time, Rich. They did the demolition. They needed to leave the foundations there for purposes or for consideration of stormwater management issues. But this work has effectively been stopped for a while on that site after they did the building demolition. So there's nothing going on right now.
Anything else? Okay. One other bit of housekeeping, which we didn't do last time when we elected Quinn to join the council. We also need to have a resolution for Quinn to become the liaison to the Community Relations Committee. Is there a motion? Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I guess you can recuse yourself. It's okay.
I accept.
Thank you, Quinn. The rest of us will stay the same in our current positions.
Was my position changed?
As a liaison?
Oh, never mind.
No, okay, yeah. That's it, nothing. With that, we move on to public comments. Does anyone would like to make a couple? Please.
My name is Lee Gehring. I live at 6800 East Avenue. Good evening, Mayor Rush, council members. Thanks for the opportunity to speak. At the November meeting, I requested that the East Avenue speed hump petition be placed on tonight's agenda for a vote. I understand that did not occur because the recent speed study did not meet the town's criteria, which only counts vehicles exceeding 25 miles per hour, even though the speed limit in our town is 20 miles per hour. That said, I'd like to kind of briefly highlight how close the data came, and more importantly, what the data actually shows about the conditions on our block. There's a lot of numbers and math in this document, so let me just try and call out the highlights. The first is traffic volume. So the table on page 6 of your agenda tonight shows over 7,200 vehicles over a 7-day period, with weekday counts between 1,000 and 1,400, which is essentially unchanged from 2017. So point is, cut through activity remains high. Total speeding, page 7 of the document. The study reports that 2,895 vehicles exceeded the posted speed limit of 20 miles per hour. That's about 40% of all traffic. Nearly 1 in 2 cars on our block are breaking the law on our street. Typical speeds. So traffic engineers, they rely on this 85th percentile speed, which is called out in the report because it reflects, how drivers actually behave when there's no enforcement presence. So the 85th percentile here was 23.2 miles per hour. So again, the speeding here is not occasional or unusual. It's the prevailing pattern. I also want to draw attention to peak hour conditions on page 7. So, several hours, including the school bus pickup and drop-off times, saw more than 400 vehicles exceeding 20 miles per hour, 400 people breaking the law within an hour. So I'd also just like to say, hey, we did not meet the criteria. So the study needed 120 vehicles per day over 25 miles per hour. Again, the speed limit here is 20 miles an hour. It recorded 85 on the highest day. Or you could qualify by saying, hey, 20 vehicles per hour over 25 miles per hour. It recorded 16 in the highest hour. So we were 4 cars short. So while the standard wasn't met, it clearly came, near the threshold. The last thing I'd call out on page 4 confirms that 2 speed humps are feasible at the proposed locations. So I would just ask respectfully that the council place the East Avenue speed hump request on the January agenda for a formal vote. And I'm looking forward to the discussion this evening.
Thank you, Lee. Appreciate it. And thank you for the care of going through the data. Dee, please.
Hi, everybody. I'm Dee Harris. I live on Ridge Street. And I've got a couple of points I wanted to make. I think you received a letter from me this morning. Thank you. Sorry about the late arrival of the letter. I want to first point out that I'm a huge supporter of East Avenue's request. I think that they really have, we have problems on West Avenue too, but they have even more reckless drivers on East Avenue. So I'm very, very strongly supportive of their request for speed humps. On the issue of the proposed variance for 6801 West Avenue. Yeah.
You'll have an opportunity to speak regarding the variance.
I will?
Yes, you will, for sure. That's
Oh.
permitted. When the person asking for the variance.
Okay.
comes, then there's an opportunity for residents to respond. If they wish to wait till that opportunity.
Okay, I can do that. I've got a couple of other points I can go through now briefly. I just would like to note, I'm sure there will be I'm hoping there will be a couple of other residents who are affected by the West Avenue proposed variance speaking, but I just want to say that several of my neighbors have said to me that they're very supportive of the points in my letter. If they have not yet been able to voice those concerns, I think it would be important for you to think about whether there's been enough time, given delivery of the information right before Thanksgiving and everybody was out of town, et cetera. I think it might be good to talk about whether enough people have been informed about those proposed changes in order to make a well-informed decision. Yes, the distribution list was very, very small for the information. And let's see. Yeah, anyhow, I can make the rest of the points when the variance comes up.
Okay,
Thanks.
thank you. Is there anybody else who wishes to make a general comment at this time? I'm also looking at the screen if there's anybody who wishes to speak via Zoom.
Doesn't look
Okay.
like anybody, Barney.
All right, good. Then I will close that session.
Actually, if you guys can hear me, it's Mary Reiner. I'd like to make a comment.
Yes, Mary, could you
tried to raise
possibly
my
show your
hand.
camera, please? It's nice to be able to see the face. of
Sure.
the people
Sorry.
talking.
My apologies. Wait,
Thank you.
here I am. Hold on 1 second. Can you see me? Tonight something unusual happened on Bradley Lane, which is that they were trying to fix the fire hydrant that was destroyed in the most recent automobile accident. And so getting home for me became this really interesting maze of where can you turn, where can you not turn. And it really brought back something, and it reminded me also of something that one of the residents of Bradley Lane once said. It was a neighbor who said, I hope you all remember that we on Bradley Lane are absorbing a lot for the rest of the town, in the sense that all of these don't turn during certain hours, speed bumps, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, makes Bradley Lane the primary, most comfortable way to get from point A to point B in the shortest period of time. But I'm not talking about Bradley Lane. I just want to revisit her words in the sense of East Avenue, because East Avenue is the only turn on Bradley Lane between Wisconsin and Connecticut that, to my knowledge at this point, does not have some kind of restriction. Now, because of all of the wild traffic, I tried to sort of detour over to Leland and make it over to Wisconsin and then come back, by a different route. And what I noticed again is that the way all of the don't turn during certain hours signs are set up and the one-way signs are set up really disadvantage East Ave. And so I would just really like to voice my support for the people who live there, because they really are absorbing a lot for the rest of the town. And there are speed bumps everywhere. They're everywhere. And if it just seems to me fair that East Avenue have that same protection. And that's all I have to say. It'll make my life harder because I use East Avenue, but oops, like somehow this froze, but I just wanted to, make that comment because it is my neighborhood. It's where I live. I'm profoundly familiar with the area. I walk dogs on that street. I have neighbors on that street. I know the street, like the back of my hand. And, I do believe that they deserve the same level of protection with speed bumps that Rosemary Street has, or that, other streets like Leland have, or the school has with flashing stop signs. I think we need to be equitable across the entire town in terms of how we try to protect our individual residents from speeding.
And with that, I'll be quiet.
Thank you very much, Mary. Appreciate the comments.
Could I add?
Rob Portman? Yeah, please.
Hi, I'm Rob Portman. I live at 6803 West Avenue, pretty close to the East Avenue area. Walk along there with our dogs every day. I'm on the Public Services Committee as well, so I wear two hats here. Not
We're only wearing one hat at the moment.
Yes, not representing that hat, but just identifying that position. My view is that this whole process for putting in speed bumps is too complicated, and also that it's something that, because of the need for consistency across the town, that should be looked at. And we can bring it up I'll bring it up at the Public Services Committee meeting. But just the idea that this is an issue for East, it's obviously an issue for West. We've had studies done, and we also don't qualify for a speed bump. But it seems somewhat bizarre to me that that you have to do a petition or set up a petition among your neighbors to get a speed bump when everything is interactive in the town. When you push in one place, it has an effect in another place. And as the previous speaker was saying, that certain streets bear a stronger burden than others. There should be a systematic way of looking at speed bumps and other kind of traffic safety measures to make it more consistent across town. And it shouldn't be quite so hard to get a speed bump when, for the most part, we don't want people going any faster than they should be going to get over a speed bump in the town anyway. So that's my view on that. And I'll have more to say about the variance when it comes up, since that's that's my next door neighbor.
Okay, good. Thank you very much for the comment. Are there any other comments at this time? Okay, with that then, let us proceed to the variance hearing. Is the developer owner here? Okay, good. Before you speak, Ron, could you please set out the process for review of variance for everyone to listen to? Because this also goes through the order that gives opportunity for residents to speak and regarding the variance. Please go ahead, Ron, to set it out.
Thank you. So this is the hearing on the variance application submitted with respect to 6801 West Avenue for a front yard fence and right-of-way front yard fence, front yard hedge. The hearing will begin with a presentation by the applicant, and the applicant can please take note that the council has had the opportunity to review the application in advance, so you don't need to cover everything that's in there, but please feel free to address what you'd like. After that, the council will ask its questions of staff and the applicant. Following that, if there's anyone else attending the hearing tonight that would like to ask questions of the applicant, they'll have the opportunity to do so. Or if you just want to make a comment in support or opposition, you can do that as well. Then the applicant will be given an opportunity for a rebuttal. Then the record will close. The council will deliberate and entertain a motion directing me to prepare a decision. Please note that if the vote is to approve the variance, the decision is not final until it's written up, and that's usually about a week to 2 week process. Before speaking, please wait until you're identified by the chair, and please come up to the podium and use the microphone if you're in the room. If you're online, please use the raise your hand function. And I will note for the record that we've received one email in support from Sarah and Peter Smith of Maple Avenue, and there's been 3 emails raising concerns about the proposed hedge and visibility and traffic safety issues. Those emails are in the record, and they're from D. Harris, Mary Webster, and Brad Hawley, all of Ridge Street. The applicant provided pictures of fence and hedge at an abutting property, and so I'll just note that the council can take administrative notice that the fence that's at 4426 Ridge Street was approved by variance granted in 2022, and also at the confronting property at 4428, that fence was approved by variance in 2004 and replaced in 2012. And both of those decisions make reference to the close proximity to the commercial area. There was also a question about how close the trees would be planted to the street. And after I finish here, Dave Walton can offer some more information about the visibility issues that have been raised. The applicant might want to provide some testimony clarifying the location of the fence and proposed location of the trees with respect to the property line and the sidewalk. I think it's clear when you lay it out and read the dimensions in the plan, but it might be worthwhile to go over that again if you could. And with that, I'll turn it over to Dave to address the visibility question.
Well, do we do that, or does the applicant speak first, Ron?
That's fine. Yeah, we can have the applicant go first.
Yeah, I think I prefer that
But
way.
The applicant might want to
Yeah,
comment on what Dave says, but we can do that in the rebuttal section.
Right. Well, or Dave can speak after the applicant too, right?
Sure.
But I think the one thing to emphasize for everyone's benefit in this, that the public opportunity to speak will be after the applicant presentation, then questions from the council, then the public can speak, then there's a rebuttal, and then it comes back to the council. When the council then takes it, it is for our sole deliberation, that there's no further opportunity for public engagement. We have to be able to deliberate among ourselves. So your opportunity to speak, I'm talking to the public, is when you have that opportunity prior, but not at the time that we have our council deliberations. With that, would the applicant like to make a presentation?
And whenever anyone speaks, if you could please just identify yourself for the record. Name and address, or name and occupation.
And I think to help with all this, is it possible to put on the screen the
Site plan?
site plan, which shows the different colors? Can that be done? It'd be helpful in terms of following you as you may wish to make your comments.
Yes, I can do that.
Thank you, Ty. Please go ahead.
Good evening. My name is Taylor Ryder, and I'm representing Terra Innovations, who is the developer in collaboration with Castlewood Builders. We built 6801 West Avenue.
You're representing whom are you with?
Terra Innovations.
You work with them, or are you working?
I work for them. Yes.
You work for them,
yes.
okay.
I'm the project manager at 6801 West. And so I'm actually from Darnestown, born and raised in Darnestown. I live in South Carolina now. So I got this project because I just want an excuse to come up here as much as I can. So I've enjoyed this project a lot. So we also built 4427 Ridge Street, and they both have been completed recently, and Ridge just closed. And so when 6801 West went on the market, we were inundated with, it's so cute, we love it, and the but was always the lack of privacy. And we had an offer, and this buyer was the one who actually came up with most of this plan. We went forward. I consulted with Dave many times. Dave has been so patient and helpful with us because I wanted to come forward with something that would be aesthetically pleasing, that would be in the conforms of the town, and make this a success for all of us. There was a lot of back and forth. They ended up withdrawing their offer, citing that this was just too complicated. So we do have another offer now. We are under contract. We are moving forward with this variance in hopes that if the future homeowner wants to do this, they can. Also, we've been bitten. If this falls through, we want to be able to do this ourselves. So I know that this diagram is, the best we could do on a piece of paper. It's hard to do scale drawings when it becomes very complicated because of dry wells that we have to avoid. The sidewalk, which everything has minimum distances that it needs to be from. So we had a lot of give and take with what we could put where. I tried to make the diagram as clear as I could, but I know there's concern. Actually, in the one that's on the screen, it's not the most recent. There's the hedges at the bottom that we have removed just to keep it a little less complicated, because the hedges aren't required for the variance. The southern ones, those were the boxwoods. So that's why we just came here to request this variance and mostly to screen the commercial space across the street and the school and maintain some privacy with the fence as a security border as well.
Okay, thank you. Do my colleagues have some questions that they'd like to ask either developer or our staff? Rich?
Yeah, one of the things I noticed in the application was the species of the arborvitae, which you put in, I believe it's called green
emerald, yes.
Right, green, right. And it's my understanding that the height of those at maturity is 10 to 15 feet, and the spread is 3 to 4 feet.
Mhm.
So that is the species that you would be planting?
Well, we consulted with SLC Landscaping to do all these, how far apart we'd plant them, how we could get one that would be easy to maintain at 8 feet, because I understand that if the variance is passed and we get approved for an 8-foot arborvitae, then that's what it should be maintained at. So he assured me that the ones that he would be putting in, and he just called them green emerald arborvitaes. I'm not sure if there's a specific genus within that, but that we would be able to maintain at 8 feet.
Yeah, I'm more concerned about the spread, because a lot of times when our ordinances say you have to keep the sidewalks clear.
Mm-hmm.
And I just wanted to make sure that this would not ever spread to the sidewalk. And as I understand it, it's 16 feet from the curb. Dave, is that correct?
The center of the root ball?
Yeah.
No.
Not that far.
My diagram shows that the spread would be, do you want to come up here? The spread would be 3 feet.
Yeah.
And that it would be 2 feet from the sidewalk, which was the requirement. But I'll let Dave see.
Dave.
Yeah, I guess emerald green arborvitae, I talked to Tolbert. They are columnar, so they tend to maintain a pretty narrow width of 3 to 4 feet. So the proposal is to plant the hedge so that the face of the trees is maintained 2 feet behind the sidewalk.
Sidewalk.
Behind the back edge of the sidewalk.
Far from the curb?
It's 13 feet from the face of curb to the face of the proposed
And
hedge.
how far from the corner to the part that they're?
So from Ridge Street at the corner, the hedge starts 40 feet to the north.
So it doesn't start until 40 feet
From
that corner.
From the curb at Ridge
Okay,
Street.
all right, that's what I wanted. Thank you.
Are there any other questions?
I-
Yeah, sure.
I was trying to figure out, and you explained this, there was something in the material about this, but where's the right of way? With respect to where the trees are planted?
Here. So for this property, Ridge Street is here, West Avenue is here. So this is the curb.
Yep.
The property line is this dotted black line here, and then it goes behind these 3 trees on Ridge Street. So like I said, the distance from here to the distance from the curb to the property line here is about 15 feet. The distance from the curb to the face of the shrubs is about 30 feet, but everything between this dotted line and the curb here is public right of way. The sidewalk is a slightly faded line that's right here. So this dotted line is basically at the back of the sidewalk.
And sorry.
Okay,
let's go on. So the last part, where was the line for the right of way?
Everything in front of this heavy dashed line, everything between that line and the street is the public.
Okay.
right of way.
The head,
So the green line shows.
Yeah.
the
you're gonna put it right
Yeah.
on the
hedge,
property
and
line.
Yeah.
that- Those plants are centered on the property.
Yeah.
Anything else?
Yes, I thought I read in the rules that the fence is supposed to be 2 feet inside of the property line.
Yeah, so the rules for fences in front yards is that the town does not allow them. So they need to be set back by right behind the face of the house. For the hedge, the town rule is that the town does not allow a hedge taller than 3 feet in the front yard, and does not allow any hedge to be planted in the public right of way. There's a regulation that allows for shrubs that are not hedges to be planted by right within the public right of way if they're set back at least 2 feet from the sidewalk. And there's not a regulation prohibiting the installation of shrubs that are individual plants in front yards.
Thanks.
Dave, I have a question for you. Oh, I'm sorry, Carl, please.
Just a follow-up. And the front yard is considered on ridge on this property?
So for any corner lot, it has multiple front yards. So any portion of the property that abuts the street creates a front yard.
Okay, and then the other question I had is when you were up at the screen, and I know people at home can't see this, but for the benefit of the council and those here, could you indicate where the stop sign is on Ridge heading west? I'm trying to sort of get a sense for line of sight.
So
The stop sign is labeled on the plan.
yeah, there's an angled walkway that comes here. The new sidewalk comes just behind the stop sign and then dives down to the curb. The stop sign is remained in the same location.
Yeah, okay. I can see it now. Thank you. Thank you.
Anything else, Carl? Okay. Has there been any discussion of traffic and sight lines for cars coming to the corner there, being able to look right, given the hedge, which would go in 40 feet back?
Yes.
Yeah, the general rule for obstructions at intersections is that there shouldn't be anything taller than 3 feet, which is sort of the line of sight between where you need clear lines of sight for cars, within 15 feet of the intersection, sort of at a diagonal across the intersection.
15 feet, I'm sorry, diagonal. What do you mean by that?
So
Basically, stop signs here, typically, cars pull past the stop sign in order to see it. So basically, if you draw a line from a point 15 feet back this way and 15 feet this way, and you take the tangent of that, that's the
Okay.
line by which everything in front of that line should be clear. And generally, it's behind that line, it doesn't create an obstruction.
And that's a standard enforced by Montgomery County.
Okay. And we're here, we have 40 feet back before we get to the hedge. Is that correct?
yeah, so the southern edge of the proposed hedge is 40 feet north of the intersection. And it's also set back 13 feet from the curb. So
Got it. Okay, good. Thank you. Any other questions from? Okay, all right. So let me open it up to the public for anyone who wishes to speak, ask any questions or offer any views.
Okay, so I know I'm supposed to announce who I am. You all know though, right?
You have to speak up.
I'm Dee Harris and I live on Ridge Street at the corner with West. I just want to say to start, I'm not a lawyer and I'm intimidated when it feels like I'm in court, but I'm speaking from the heart and speaking from 60 years of experience living in that home, right? So you've read my letter, and I hope those who are on the Zoom have had a chance to see it as well. I'm wondering how many other letters have come in, so we can address that. Don't have to be addressed now, but I would like to know the contents of them also. So as I said in my letter, I don't have any significant objections to installation of 2-3 foot front yard fences. I think that's perfectly acceptable. It's important on a corner lot to have some protection from things that blow across the street, from, you know, people tromping through your yard, et cetera. I understand that. But I do have a strong objection, many strong objections to the approval of a variance for a front yard hedge that is over 3 feet high. So whether it seems to those of you who are sitting around the table now that 40 feet back should not make a difference, or that 8 feet high should not make a difference, it does. There was a long hedge that used to be there, and it was a huge nuisance. It obstructed vision, and it made that intersection very difficult to navigate. The one thing that I really welcomed about the construction of new houses on that lot was the final destruction of that forsythia hedge, because it was a real it was a visual obstruction, and it was a nuisance because it was not well maintained. Visibility is key there, because we have a lot of traffic coming for the school every single day. We also have a lot of speeding on the off hours when there are not lineups of cars. And visibility going further down the street, even a hedge, especially one that is 8 feet high, or 15 feet if it's not maintained by the later owners, will be significantly impacted all the way down to the end of the block. And that's where the pickup of speed happens, is the end of the block. So at least the old hedge was actually more permeable, and it was possible to see movement through it. But the planting that is suggested for this hedge is extremely tight. It will create a solid wall within 2 years. My daughter is a landscaper. She knows this plant very well, and she was appalled to see it being listed. So as the varietal that would be planted right next to the sidewalk. The challenges in traffic are growing daily on West Avenue. Today was an extraordinary exception because every single road was so filled, but that's something we're going to be looking forward to. Well, we need to be anticipating as the reconstruction of Bradley Lane is going to take place, because Bradley was shut, and it was just absolute mayhem throughout the entire southwest sector of town. And when the park is reconstructed. So I think that we're going to be facing even more rapid intensification of poor behavior by drivers in coming years. Allowing via a variance of such a significant deviation from the safety rules that have been set up in the town, I feel is something that is not acceptable. I know many of my neighbors feel the same way. Putting a hedge up there is going to be a step backwards in terms of safety at an important intersection where children going to school are frequently there. There is no crosswalk. There's no speed bump. There's no stop sign at that intersection. And all of those issues have been raised before the council multiple times over 10 and 15 years. So to me, it is an approval of this hedge would constitute not only an inconsistency in the enforcement of policy that has been longstanding, but I would like to understand why such a variation would be allowed when it is an increase, when it constitutes an increase in the danger on that, at that location. 15 feet versus 40 feet. It doesn't, the 40 feet, you can still see cars that are coming, but it's only from, you know, a little ways away. And at the speeds that they come, that can be just a split second, right? You need to be able to see further down that street because of the patterns of drivers' behavior. If there were, for example, a much looser hedge, there might be more permeability, but we could only see that in time. And I just feel like honestly, I don't mean to cause offense to the representative of the developer here, but I find it rather disingenuous for the developer to be complaining about these issues now when they had the opportunity to design and utilize those two lots in very different ways. Yes, there is, it's very close to the street and it is close to a commercial area. They're not impacted the way I am, for example, with the school traffic, but it's disingenuous to say now, oh my goodness, we really need some more privacy and we need you to make 2 or 3 variances in order for us to do it. And it's going to come at the cost of the safety of the pedestrians and the motorists in the neighborhood. I find that the lack of privacy issue could have been foreseen and could have been built into the way that the utilization of the property was designed and constructed. Screening commercial space, you know, this commercial space that's directly across from the house is a parking lot. And there is notionally a screen there already. But I understand that that property feels a little exposed. It is what it is. It's a small lot. It's a small place. But I don't have any confidence that a new owner would necessarily maintain the hedges the way that they need to be maintained. So I think the council needs to decide whether they would be responsible for maintaining hedges since they're partly on the right of way. At any rate, those are just a few thoughts. I don't feel like I can even respond to in real time to some of the points that were made by our colleague from the developer, but I also am really concerned that, again, an extremely small distribution notice, small in terms of scope, distribution notice was sent out to only the abutting properties when this kind of issue impacts traffic and it impacts everybody on the street. So it was only Rob's house, my next door neighbor's house, my house that got notices. The 4427 is also on the list, but is there anybody living there? No. They don't know the situation. So I just would really urge the council to stick to the precedents that are there. When the next door neighbor's fence was built a few years back, you made them move it back and disrupt the actual sight lines and the aesthetics of a continuous fence line there. Okay, that was fine. But when that was approved, they were told they couldn't put a hedge in front of it that exceeded 3 feet in height. So if you approve a hedge, it can be 3 feet in height. What I object to is both the density and the height of the proposed plantings, because it creates a a hazard. And I'm telling you, whether it just seems that way or not, it is a hazard at that intersection. I've been living there for a long time, and it is not easy to see. And the way that people drive is very similar to what happens on East Avenue, because it's another egress point. It's actually when people are going out of the town that they go zooming through there. There's no stop sign to stop them. There's no speed bump. So I'm repeating myself now. I apologize, but if you are inclined, if the council is inclined to grant this variance, I would urge you to wait until you have actually consulted with the rest of the affected residents, to consult with them, because this notice came up right before Thanksgiving. It says that it was delivered on the 25th. No, yeah, 25th, did you say, Dave? Tuesday. Well, Tuesday was 2 days before Thanksgiving. And, essentially, I didn't see it until at least a week later. So there's not been time, and nobody else on my block saw it. So I know they're all concerned, and I would really urge you to do the right thing and get it, vet it with the people who are going to be impacted by such a change. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other comments from the public?
Yes.
Ron, okay, I can see you on the side there. Okay, please, go ahead.
Which
Is
one?
it possible to show the images on the other screen? Or maybe you could take down you can take down the graph at this time.
Can I go
There you
ahead?
go. Okay, good. That's fine. Good, thank you. Okay, Rob, go ahead, please.
Hi, thanks. So Rob Portman, same as before. We live at 6803 West Avenue. We're delighted to have, with the prospect of having new neighbors. We've been in consultation with Taylor about a whole host of other issues, but not this one. We did get the notice, and we've been thinking about it a lot. Just for context that I don't think but is sort of referenced, it's sort of been suggested. The prior owner had a hedge that went all the way down and all the way down to Ridge, almost to Ridge. It was probably it stopped at her house, but anyway, it was a lot closer to Ridge, but it was not well maintained. It was probably about 8 feet high. It was a incredible nuisance and a danger, I think, to sightlines. Although I think this one would not be quite as bad because of the 40-foot distance from Ridge. And I think it might be worthwhile if you are actually seriously considering approving this, it might be worthwhile to get the traffic safety person that does all these studies to take a look at it and see if they think it's a danger. It's certainly a nuisance because if it's not well maintained, it does overgrow into the sidewalk, and that is a really heavily traveled sidewalk. And the other side of the street, it's not really easy to get to the other side of the street, and really, the people that are going on the other side of the street are mostly going into the shopping or to the church. So people that are on this side of the street are generally not going to want to go to the other side and come back, and especially given the heavy traffic and no stop signs and things like that. We have been living here since 2005. Our house must have gotten some sort of variance at some point because we are much closer to the street than this house is. There's no house in this area that's more exposed and has less privacy than our house. That was something we understood when we bought the house. And I think it is something that the people that buy this next house should understand that. And one of the benefits that they get from being the other side of it, the benefit on this other side of the lack of privacy is the convenience of being so close to such great amenities and such. So from our perspective, we strongly oppose it. It may or may not create some sightline problems for us getting out of our driveway. We already have some evergreens that separate our properties. It depends on exactly. I haven't gone out to look to see if it would create additional sightline issues, but I am concerned about the traffic coming from ridge going west that would be turning that corner and not actually taking the time to see it.
It's also pedestrians. I would be worried. I mean,
My-
coming out of our
My
driveway.
wife Annette signed.
Sorry, yeah, hi. I would be worried about, as we're backing out of our driveway, it's already sometimes hard to see pedestrians and we have to be really careful. And this just adds another layer of obstruction.
Yeah, so I mean, generally speaking, we would oppose it, because of the potential for overgrowth, potential for sightline obstruction, and I support all the reasons that Dee stated in her letter and stated just previously at the podium, that I just don't understand why there would be a variance here and that is apparently inconsistent with what you've done in other cases. We hope that that this new sale does go through. And the other thing I guess I would say is if these neighbors really buy the house, and if these people buy the house and they feel really strongly about putting in a hedge, then I assume that they might revisit this at some point in the future. But the fact that they're not even here supporting it suggests to me that this is more the developer trying to make sure that they can sell the house and not so much the people that are living there making the request. So that's our position.
Also, I just want to say what Dee said about if it is going to go in, the town actually taking responsibility for making sure that it's maintained, because in the past it was not, and it didn't seem like the town did anything to make sure that the previous owner maintained it. So.
Okay, thank you. Is there anybody else from the public that wishes to speak? Okay, so it's the opportunity for the developer to rebut. What would you like to say in response?
Thank you for your comments. And I do understand there's the visibility has come up over and over and again. And I drove it back and forth, and I know I don't live here. And but I really 40 feet is a big distance, and Montgomery County set 15 feet for a reason. That's in their safety parameters. We have doubled that plus the patio. Back there, this is a very small backyard. Giving those screen, and it would be a screen, a 3 foot, 3 foot width screen next to each other would really give them access to use that side patio as an outdoor space that they can enjoy with privacy and security. There is a hedge on west on the other side, but it is pretty much trunk and then tree. So you can see right into the parking lot, which is a very busy parking lot, as well as school traffic and just a lot of people. So again, and that was the comment that the first buyer said, we're outside all the time. We want to be able to be on our porch and not everyone know what we're doing. I understand everyone's concern. I really do, but we're just trying, and we are trying to sell the house. I mean, that's what we are trying to do, but I promise you, we have the buyer's interest in your future neighbors at heart. We want to give them a home that they can enjoy and live in and, enjoy their backyard without having to wave to a neighbor if they don't want to.
Yeah, that's all right. Mm-hmm.
So wouldn't it be possible for you to provide privacy for the residents by building a hedge that is further in and that actually screens the back, having the entire side of the house? You could do something like that would give them privacy when they are using the house instead of creating problems for passers-by.
Can we put that back up so she can point out where she's talking about? Or you can point it on my iPad.
No, it'd
I
be
just
good to
wanted
put
them
it
to
up on
see.
the
Okay,
screen.
yeah.
Mostly when there are screening and fences put up, back of the house. So I think your floor plans changed a little bit from, but basically, couldn't you put the screening right here, right? So that you can have your fence where it is. You're gonna have to have some kind of access point from the driveway into the back. But if you had screening plantings right there, then people wouldn't be able to see the patio. That would give people patio privacy. That's my suggestion. That is, we were talking about the patio,
Mhm.
privacy in the patio.
Yep.
What you're getting here is privacy in a tiny little yard that's not going to use much. And that's where, or, you know, if this hedge started back here, that would even be better, but it is going to create a problem with visibility with traffic, and no matter what people believe, I have that experience, I know about.
Mhm. I understand what you're saying there. I think we were really trying to make this pretty too, as an aesthetic part of it. I just feel like if a row of arborvitaes in the middle of the yard right there with a fence, 15 feet away, it doesn't look right. So I think we were just trying to design it where it would be attractive. But I see what you're saying.
I've seen that solution.
Okay. I don't think we would consider that at this time.
Well,
I have one question. Is there-
Ron, how's this work in terms of questions at this point from the council to the developer? We can ask them, obviously.
Yes, you can modify the order and go back to
Right.
questions. Just give all parties an opportunity to address the same subject matter.
This just arose because of looking at the picture. And my question is the patio now, is it completely open or is a fence planned? Because some of the materials that you furnished suggested that a fence might be going up in front of that patio.
That's part of this. We want to put a fence in front of the patio and we want it to make it 6 feet in where the blue line is. You can still, most people are taller than 6 feet. So it would provide some privacy, but not if someone's walking down the street, it wouldn't cover it like a tree would, like a screen.
So there's going to be a 6-foot fence in front of the patio to shield those folks from the street?
That's part of our proposal, yes.
Do you see where it is?
I can't.
It's a blue line right in the middle in front of the patio. Dave, you see where it is?
Dave, why don't you point
That's
it
it right
out?
there. That's 6 foot. And
Okay.
that they do that by right.
Oh, yeah, but I just mean, if that's already closing off the patio, I'm just trying to see how this works in terms of the privacy.
Yeah, and if you can picture it, if you've got a 6-foot, like that table obviously isn't 6 feet high, but when people are outside, there's a slope to the backyard. You can still see everything back there, heads, people can see who's back there. That was just part of the initial buyer's suggestion to add the screen with the fence. And again, that's what we're guiding most of this off of what we've heard from prospective buyers, that was just, that was more of a safety measure, for keeping kids contained, things like that. And that the screening with the fence in the front would not just be aesthetic, but it would also help with privacy. It's a very exposed part of the house.
Any other comments or questions?
Yeah, I did. Dave, tell me, can you go over with us the requirements for maintenance of shrubs on, what the town is responsible for and what homeowner is responsible for, and what happens when a homeowner doesn't clear the sidewalk?
Yeah, so I guess as part of a variance, the council can make the maintenance conditions, for whatever you want as far as the setback. Generally in the town, residents are responsible for maintaining private plantings that they've installed adjacent to or in the right of way in a way that preserves ADA accessibility of the sidewalk. So if the sidewalk becomes overgrown, we send a letter advising the resident that, they're in violation, asking them to do the pruning. And if they fail to cure the issue, we direct our landscape contractor to come in and do the necessary work, which is sort of a new process that we put in place in the last year.
Anything else from the colleagues and questions? Then it's time for us to close the, yes, sure, Dean.
Your attorney said that all the parties should be able to address what was raised.
Yeah, go ahead if you have something else to add.
Yeah.
But please go up and speak to the microphone.
Yeah, I would just, I got two things I'd like to say. Number one is it doesn't, from my own knowledge of the site, I don't think that a 6-foot fence would be ineffective at blocking and providing privacy where you've got it located. But a screened, a hedge there would do even better. But the other question that I wanted to ask is, I think it might have been you, ma'am, that I saw when I was walking by the house one day, talking to a potential client and advocating with them that they should put in the hedge. It was somebody who looked a lot like you. Maybe it was the real estate person, but it was someone who must have known that there were restrictions. And I found that a little odd to see someone officially from the corporation that was trying to sell the thing, talking about this with a client as something that they would do. Okay, that's it. Thanks.
Can I make one comment on the fence also?
Sure.
So I agree with Dee. We have a 6-foot fence that we just put in, a new fence. It's always been 6 feet, but we put in a new fence in consultation with Taylor between our properties. And it's perfectly effective if you're at ground level, not effective when we go to our second floor, and not effective from their second floor, of course, but 6 feet, I think the average height in America is well below 6 feet. So I do agree that in putting the 6-foot fence, that the presenter said this before, but putting that 6-foot fence near the patio, and if from our perspective, we see that property every day when we walk our dogs by it, that would cut off the patio and protect the patio. It wouldn't give them the privacy on the front yard, but most of us don't have privacy in our front yards areas. I mean, if you go along any street in town, most of us don't have hedges in front that protect us from the property. And our area is not that much different than others. There's a lot of traffic, but I really don't see why this property would be entitled to this sort of super extra privacy that other properties are not. So thank you for that opportunity.
Okay, with that, close the public hearing. Let me start off by offering a few general comments to my colleagues, and then I want to open up for consultation discussion. First of all, in the matter of consistency, the councils have traditionally taken a view in respect to corner lots of giving variances for people who want privacy on at least one of the two sides that's facing a street, and see that as very different from interior streets where we are absolutely clear not having anything in the front, but for corner lots for the reasons of privacy. And we have granted variances for that. We've granted variances for rebuilding a fence on East. We've granted a variance for a house that's on the corner of Bradley and East. There are other places as well where we have granted fences that are 6 feet high, or 6.5 feet high, in fact. So that's consistent. I think one of the issues that arises in consistency is that when you get to that intersection and you look south, there are 3 holly trees that are 30 odd feet, 32 feet to the south. And the cutback to the north here in the hedge is 40 feet. So in terms of consistency, if we decided that 40 feet is not enough for safety purposes at a corner, we'll have to relook at the question of where we plant town trees and whether even 30 or 32 feet is adequate, or potentially have to take down those trees. So in terms of consistency, we get there, we have to really be careful about this. The other issue, I think, is on the question of location. I think and making sure that we are careful to assure that there is no issue about getting close to a sidewalk is very important. So I think that's something we certainly have to consider. And finally, going back to consistency, and Rob Portman mentioned this, between lots, we actually do permit a fence that goes up to 6.5 feet, provided, and if it comes along the side, it can turn to the house, but can't go into the front yard of the house. In other words, it has to be at the same site plane as the front plane of the house. But there's an example of that on the corner of Maple and Stanford on the northeast corner, where there's a 6-foot wall, solid fence that cuts perpendicular between the house. It's parallel to the road, and it goes from the side of from the front edge of the house over to the side of the interior lot. So generally in the town, we have taken the view that 6.5 foot fences on the backyards and side yards are okay, nothing in the front. But we have taken a more lenient view in respect to corner lots, feeling that they have a right to feel the privacy of an interior lot if they wish to put up some kind of barrier. But we have to review it and it has to come before a variance. And then lastly, I think in respect to the safety issue, it's certainly very important. And we have to think hard about the setbacks of the hedges from any intersections. I'll leave it at that as general comments, but open it up for.
Well, I want to speak to consistency as well. We talk about consistency, and I did a little walk around to see how close shrubs and trees or shrubs particular and hedges were to the corners. And I noticed almost all of our corners on that part of town, Willow and 46th Street, the hedges are about 5 feet from the corner there. And we've allowed those variances along there, as well as on the other side, there's another hedge there that's about, I would say, 10 feet from the corner as well. So that we've allowed hedges. And I think there's a valid point. And one of the concerns I've always had is those sight lines. And, you know, we should be very careful about approving anything that doesn't give adequate sight lines on any of our intersections. So, you know, there's a lot of things that if we consider this hedge, we need to make sure that those sight lines are appropriate. And from what Dave says, it's 15 is the county's standard. 40 feet is much beyond that. So the sight line probably is, if you are at that corner, you're looking left, the sight lines going left at Ridge and West are less than would be if this hedge was put in place on the right. So I just don't want us to be in a position of having to revisit sensitive issues about people having shrubbery that's too close. And so now that we made this variance or didn't approve it because we're concerned about sight lines. I don't want to have to revisit all of those places where we've approved them before or put our own shrubbery in, and we need to go back and think about taking them down. I just want to say we do need to be consistent.
Other comments? Go ahead.
Yeah. So as a relative newcomer, don't have the history that you have with the various other variances. And so, part of me is hesitant to, necessarily consider all the past ones as sort of the same when I haven't seen them. And I mean, I think they're on different streets. They, could have had different circumstances. So, I mean, my starting point is that there's a rule against the hedges. And I mean, I sort of see the fact that the patio is enclosed with a 6-foot fence, I mean, answers the need for privacy. And I think that we've got another letter that's come in opposing the hedge. So we have, I think, 5 neighbors who have opposed it. And so, I mean, I think that we have to take those people's positions into account, as to why an exception is being made. I mean, I understand that they have 2 front yards. That's the basis, but.
Appreciate the explanation of past practice regarding corner lots. And I think if it's so common that it's, routinely granted, maybe we should be adjusting our guidelines so that it doesn't have to come up every time. Because so that was very important context to have, because it just didn't seem to me that, it's very clear that it is a variance. And if the intention is not to have obstructions in front yards, and we have 2 front yards here, that would be a problem. But then, as you point out, you look to the south and it's the exact same condition. Regarding the sightlines, I agree with everybody's concern about visibility. I personally don't think that's going to be a problem here based on the geometry, but the drawings don't show that very well. And I think given the number of concerns that have been raised about it, I think there can be more clarity shown, and you got a lot of images, but, a very useful image would be, from the driver's seat at the stop sign or a few feet past and looking up to the north. And you've got, of course, the southbound traffic is in the other lane. So I think there's going to be plenty, if it's 40 feet away, I think there's going to be plenty of line of sight to southbound traffic, but I don't think we've demonstrated it. And I think there's a number of concerns that have been raised about it. So that should be shown so that people can maybe, but so I don't think that's going to be a problem, but I don't think it's been demonstrated that it won't be a problem. Tell me, I'll just stop there.
My own thoughts, a couple of things. I think tangentially, I had not been aware until I discussed this with Dave, I hadn't been aware of it, that when we send notices for variances, we send them to abutting homes and to homes across the street. And that's been the practice forever, I guess, at least as long as you've been here, Dave, which is forever, right? Okay. Right. It is in the code. Okay. So I think it is something for us to consider to whether we want to expand the circle of people who receive notices to adjacent homes plus 1 further depth, say something like that, so that more people, are open to bear. But this is, to my knowledge, in my 10th year, the first time that we've dealt with a variance where people felt they hadn't known. So I think the combination in the past of adjacent homes knowing and plus the signage that goes up has been adequate. But it's a problem here. And that's what's also spawned some of these letters. I would also take it that here I'm making an assumption that some of the letters came in responding to the letter that one resident sent out and copied to other residents. So I'm not sure these other residents have seen the plans or are necessarily aware that there's a 40-foot setback of the hedge. Otherwise, they might have just thought the hedge was coming right to the corner, which of course would elicit, and understandably so, an opposition. You think they all understand it's 40 feet back? That's a long ways. But that's still a question that's lingering in my mind. I think the other thing is that we have to be careful in our fiduciary responsibilities to, even though it's very easy emotionally to make the distinction. From a fiduciary responsibility, we cannot make the distinction between a developer and a homeowner. The developer is the homeowner, full stop. And they have their rights, and we have to be mindful of things that we do that potentially reduce valuation. And finally, I would say that in regard to screening and and on the corner, again, we've generally been permissive, not unmindful of issues, but permissive, and it's recognizing that the issue of people wanting some privacy is certainly relevant. Anyway, I think we ought to be aware that there are two different issues tonight. One is the 3-foot fence, and the second is the hedge, and they're separable. So we could take a vote on one and not necessarily the other. I would also say my own personal view is that I have driven to the location. I have sat in the car. I've looked. I could see very easily. So I agree with you, Carlo. I've also walked there several times, put myself in the middle of the street to make and squatted down to make sure I was at the driver's height. And indeed, you can see all the way up on the other. And I don't see any reason to have a different view about the sight line looking to the north versus to the south. So I personally do not believe that there's an issue about the hedge given it's 40 feet back. I do believe there's an issue about its height, and I think again consistency matters. The town generally has a view of fences that shouldn't be more than 6.5 feet. And I see no reason that if the council were to approve this hedge, we should allow anything that's higher than, I would say, 6 feet. And furthermore, I'd want to be triply sure that the 2-foot space that's to be left between the planting, between the sidewalk and the outside face of the hedge would be maintained. So I might like for a buffer of safety to get those hedge another foot further in or some distance further in order to make absolutely sure that we aren't going to find a situation where the hedge isn't kept or whatever, and suddenly it's growing more than we want it to be. So I don't want to invite that situation. So I would be comfortable going forward, but with those changes. But I'm also not looking to ram anything through on this, and I'm not convinced that it has to be decided tonight. And that in regard to the hedge, especially since the homeowners are in contract and you don't know exactly what they're going to want. But I did want to put on the record that in principle, I'm in favor of, and I respect the right of people in corner lots to look for more privacy. I think the developer has been mindful here of with the setback they've offered of concern about safety, and I respect that. And I think given that, my inclination is to support what they want to do in principle, but with the modifications that I've suggested. But I think that in the spirit of leaning over backwards to make sure everyone's heard, make sure it's dealt with, I'd like to know that all the residents who care do really understand the drawings and understand the setback to the north that's being proposed. I think it would be advisable to put this back on the agenda for a month from now to take up. But I would like to ask for consideration for the 3-foot fence. I don't see any reason why we would not take that up this evening.
Can I?
Please, go ahead, Rich.
And I endorse that. As I too visited the site, and I don't see problems with the sight line. That is my opinion, and I think that there's a legitimate enough of a concern of the residents that we don't have to make a decision tonight, and we need to have the traffic engineer go out and verify. I would also like the applicant, after they've heard what our discussion has been, to maybe make modifications to the plan before we come back, so that, you know, if after what you've heard, if you want to modify this and come back, we can give more residents, other than the four that have been notified
Right.
time to look at it, but get some decent drawings that, these are just too complicated for a resident. You can't see the sidewalk easily. You can't see where the curb is. You can't see where the property line is. So we need something that gives visibility to what's the proposal. So I think a deferral of the hedge stuff and an opportunity for the owner to make modifications before we consider it again. But I would also think we should go ahead with the fence
Okay.
and not hold that up.
All right. Is there a motion regarding the fence, the 3-foot fence?
I make a motion, we approve the variance for the fence.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any questions? Okay. Please.
I do have a question. I mean, I also think that it seems like there's consensus about the fence. I guess I just wonder, is there any reason that would the plan change at all, vis-a-vis the hedge? I mean, I guess, are they truly separate? In other words, can they be decided separately?
I would ask would you like to speak to that, ma'am?
I do have some concerns that if the hedges are pushed back and the fence line gets smaller, that front yard, it might not be conducive to fencing if it's too small. So I would like to, I guess, measure it out, go back to the site. And so, yeah, I guess if you have to approve the actual placement of the fence tonight, then I don't think we could do that because it might not be in that same spot if those hedges move.
Are we approving the exact placement of the fence or just a fence that could go up on the property?
Yeah, generally. You want to take it, Ron?
Dick. Go ahead, Dick.
Yeah, generally fences or variances are approved based on the plans that are submitted for the record. Typically, we've given some leniency if the actual construction is either set further into the property or not as tall. So if it's not more than what was requested, we've sometimes allowed that just administratively to be done. Here, you certainly could approve the fence as it's shown in case the applicant decides not to come back with the hedge request. And then if the fence location is changed during a subsequent hearing based on a change in the hedge, you could reapprove the fence at a different location then.
Just to be clear, were you suggesting that potentially you would move the fence further in? Is that what you were saying?
Well, if the arborvitaes were pushed, as you said, to give buffer to the sidewalk, so if those were pushed in more, then the fence would have to come in more.
Okay.
So
So potentially we could approve the fence at the current location or further into the property. We could give you that flexibility in our vote tonight. All I'm trying to look to do is try to give some assurance
Yeah.
and something you can take back.
yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Okay. So should we modify, you want to modify the resolution then?
Yeah, modify the motion that we approve the fence and if at its current location on the plan or further in towards the property.
Right. Good.
Still second it.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. So you got half a loaf. But we will take it up again next month. It is partly because just want to make sure all neighbors have a chance to respond. Yes, I'll let you two, please.
I understand that was a very complicated drawing. It was complicated to create. So I love that you want it more simple for the neighbors. And I just want some guidance there on what you want me to present next time.
Go ahead, Ron.
Well, I think the important things are the curbs, the sidewalks, the property line, and and the house itself, and the house and the pit,
Okay.
whatever. So the outlines of those, there's just a lot of other
Yeah.
detail on this that you don't need.
Right.
You just want to give residents the visibility of what they understand, which is, I know where the curb is, I know where the sidewalk is, I know how much distance you're going to get from the side edge of the sidewalk
Mhm,
to the edge of the planning,
mhm.
the mature planning.
Gotcha. Yeah.
And, that, just make it as simple.
Okay.
And, you don't need all of the rest of the.
Yeah. That was to scale. And so I think that I got caught up in the
Yeah.
to scale drawing. So that sounds much
Yeah,
easier.
Sounds pretty easy. Yeah.
Okay.
Can I also add, I thought the images, even with the superimposed shrubs, were very helpful.
Mhm.
And if you take an image from the intersection where people are concerned and look north
Yeah.
with a car that's in the southbound lane and you put your
Mhm.
hedge where you want the hedge, that will
Okay.
communicate perhaps a lot more than a two-dimensional drawing.
Yes.
I think it's important that when you take that picture,
Mhm.
before you superimpose the hedges on it,
Mhm.
that you get a pretty good distance down the street.
Mhm.
And I would say almost to the next intersection, if you could,
Okay.
because
Mhm.
that's what, 2 houses away, actually.
Okay.
One last thing I want to say, I wanted to compliment you and your design group because I think the two houses are lovely.
Thank you.
And I really
Thank you.
appreciate the fact that there's a lot of tear downs that go on in this town, and what goes up are box stuccos,
Mhm.
not very attractive. And you guys really put a lot of effort into the design, and it
Thank you
shows.
very
So
much.
really,
We
I think
tried.
it's a very nice addition to the neighborhood.
Thank you for saying so.
Absolutely. Okay,
If
thank you.
Give her some
Yeah.
time. If we're going to bring it up next in January, we need some, give you some time to do the drawings and stuff. And I know it's getting into the holidays, but when would you need something to send out to more residents than?
Yeah, I guess the code mandates 15 days notice. I'm not sure exactly when the January council meeting is.
Second,
January 14th.
January
So,
14th.
I mean, it'll go out in theory, I guess, the week between
Yeah, there's no.
Christmas and New Year's.
I got nothing going on.
Yeah, no.
If there's a way to
I'll
get-
get it.
If
I'll
there's a
get
way
it.
for us to distribute stuff
Yeah.
before Christmas, that would
Yeah.
be good.
Okay. I'll
We
get
will
it.
take it up on the 14th.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank
And-
you for your time.
Thank you.
And in terms of due process, Barney, the interested parties who are at the hearing tonight understand that the case is being continued. So the code doesn't actually mandate another 15 days notice. So
Okay, but I think in this case, we'd want to make sure that we went to a broader number of residents and got it out
Sure.
before Christmas. It'll add to the helpfulness of getting our discussions in January. Okay. Thank you very much. Did you fly up just for this, or you?
Lucky you.
Well, you can go back to warmer weather. At least you can enjoy that. Thank you. Okay. Council discussions, the speed bump request. Thank you, Lee, for your testimony, or not your comments before. The reason why this is a discussion item tonight is because the guidelines of the policy were not met. Per the policy, the council is able to consider extraordinary circumstances if it wishes to then go ahead with proposing speed bumps. And if we were to decide to do that, we would then hold a public hearing on having speed bumps in January. And as we all know, given the weather, we can't put the speed bumps in until April or May anyway. So as a practical matter, it doesn't make any difference in installation. But obviously, we know residents want to get a resolution and we don't want to delay it. So tonight, I guess what I would like to do is have a discussion about how do we consider the data we have, and do we wish to go forward and have a public hearing for speed bumps next month or not? And the one other thing I would add for the benefit of our new council members, in principle, anytime we have a public hearing, it is only a public hearing. We are not obligated to then vote in favor of whatever it is that has been brought forth to the public hearing. We could say no, we could say yes, we could have modifications. So in principle, we have complete flexibility in terms of our decision-making. As a practical matter, in terms of public expectations, I think it's a little different. As a practical matter, in my experience, when we've had a public hearing, It is a presumption that the council is generally in favor of what we're proposing, because after all, work has been done. Specific plans are in front of the residents. Language, if it's a code issue, language, or an ordinance issue, language has been developed, which we've reviewed and approved. So the public has a notion that this is essentially the kind of thing that the council would like to do, but now is asking for review by the community in the absolute details and their chance to register concerns and potentially change our minds. But presumption is we're in favor, as distinct from an earlier process or earlier point in the thought process where we may not yet have formed our views and we just want a public forum just to hear what people have to say. So the reason I go through that is just to make clear that if we are going to schedule a public hearing in January, it would be with the presumption that we generally are in favor of putting in speed bumps and we're looking for confirmation and review. So I just wanted to say that at the outset. With that, I will open it up.
I guess I want to talk about the statistics that we've seen, and as Lee mentioned, our town code sets all of the parameters at the 25-mile-per-hour speed limit, and as you all know, we changed the speed limit townwide to 20 miles an hour. What, 2 years ago? 2 or 3?
Yeah,
not whatever. And so when you go on, and Barney or Dave put together a chart, which is the chart that shows the, it's this chart, it's not numbered. It's the chart with the speeds. And you look at the 25 and 20. What struck me was, the statistics are based on not necessarily the volume of the traffic. So if you had 1,000 cars and let's say 10 of them were going over 25, the percentage is, is 10%. If you had 10 cars and the same factor were applied, you would have 1 car. And the difference between the 1 car and the 10 cars is what makes a difference to me. It's the numbers that we've seen consistently at 25 and 20 on the number of vehicles going through east from 9 o'clock in the morning until 7 o'clock at night exceed 100 cars per hour. That's a lot of cars. And so I'm, again, the statistics say, well, at the 25 mile an hour speed limit, 7.1% of them are exceeding on average in total. And then at the 20, it's 40%. So given the volume of cars and the numbers in excess of 20 miles an hour, that's a lot of cars speeding on a residential street. And when the PSC took up the issue of the requirements for asking for speed humps 3 or 4 years ago, we purposefully made it more flexible. We still wanted to have an engineering parameter to measure against. And that's why the process is in there to do that. But we also made it so that the residents could ask for the speed bumps. And once we got the engineering analysis, because it just wasn't about the speeds and the volumes, it was also about engineering of the speed humps themselves. Are there appropriate places along that space where speed humps could be applied? And in some instances, you couldn't put them because it would be, there'd be an obstruction, or there'd be something that would prohibit you from placing a speed hump along that path. So the engineer, we we have them do the feasibility analysis, which is both the study and looking at whether or not you can actually physically put the speed bumps in. And this is a situation where the data doesn't support at 25 miles an hour doesn't support, but they are feasible. He's told us, yeah, you could put these speed humps in. And so my feeling is that a number of residents have requested them. If you look at the volumes of traffic and the speeds on that street, they're excessive, at least in my view. And it's something that we ought to allow, allow to be done. We should have these speed bumps put in place. And I do want to say one other thing. This street, we're only looking at the one block. The other block has not requested a speed hump yet. I understand there's been an email exchange about interest in speed bumps on between Stanford and Leland. But this is just that portion between Stanford and East West. And so I'm fully in favor of these speed bumps at the on East between Stanford and Bradley.
Thanks, Rich.
Yep.
Carl?
I agree with everything Rich said. I would also point out that the volume of cars in the evening, and particularly this time of year where it gets dark so early, is quite high. So in addition to cars speeding, they're speeding in the dark. And I don't know if it was in this material or someplace else where I recently remember seeing data about how much of the traffic is cut through traffic on the street. And earlier tonight, comment was made that from Bradley, this is the only street between Wisconsin and Connecticut where you can go north. So it's commonly used cut through. And this is my own qualitative opinion. I think residents of our town are much more mindful of being careful when they drive through town, and folks who are by definition cutting through because they're trying to save time compared to some other route are in more of a hurry. So for those reasons and the ones you already said, I also think this is a solid proposal, and I would recommend it go to hearing.
Any other comments?
I have one.
Sure.
Oh, my mic is still on. I agree with the points that you've raised, Rich. I also noticed that we did get we got an expression of interest in more speed humps further down on East. And I guess I wonder, is this a situation where maybe the speed, I don't know. Is this a situation in which you'd want to look at all of East to decide where to best put speed humps along the whole stretch? Or, does it make sense to decide it on this part that we're looking at now? I guess also, do these numbers apply to the other part of East? Maybe people turned off, I don't know.
Yeah, the speed, where was the speed measuring device? It was on Stanford, it was in between.
Yeah, it was just south of Ridge. So
Yeah.
in the
Todd,
section
can you
between
put up
Bradley.
can you put up
and
the
Ridge
map that shows the homes and where the speed bumps would be?
Sure.
Thanks.
Can I, while we're getting that up, residents have to request. There has to be 40%?
So the majority of residents within a street
Street
segment can
segment.
petition. The town council can also independently
Right.
ask the PSC to make a recommendation or ask the town to do a study of a block.
But the point, they request, or we request, you still do the feasibility, you still do the engineering analysis and the traffic study. For this second segment, those places that he's identified would be the same, even if we decided to put some on the extension.
Yeah, and just to answer your previous question, we had done a speed study of the other street segment back in 2017, and the speeds were slightly lower in that segment than they were in this segment. So there is a difference in the sort of geometry and the speeds and the amount of
And
traffic in those
Carlo,
blocks.
For 50%, almost 50% of the cut through is by town residents. Okay, so the cars coming in off of that intersection, it's about 50% of our town. And, you know, we don't capture license plates and stuff, but 50% of the people are also residents who are speeding. All right.
Yes.
We're not as conscientious as I'd hoped.
No,
us to be.
no,
Okay, fair enough.
I have one other.
Yeah, please.
So I have one other question, and that is, did the Public Services Committee make a recommendation on this proposal?
No, the petition came straight to the council.
Yeah. And we try not to get the PSC. This is a fairly simple.
Yeah.
Study it and make a decision. If it's something that's going to be more widespread in effect on the town, then we would turn it over to the PSC to do some more work. But
Answering your other question, Tambra, actually a fair amount of the traffic turns right onto Stanford.
Oh.
And goes up over the hill and then left on Maple, or goes straight on Stanford to the Rosemary Circle. Because when we did our traffic study, that's where a lot of it goes. Because if people are trying to cut sort of catty-cornered through the town, they have two ways to go. Once they start on East, they either stay on East, take that dogleg, turn right on Leland, or they turn right onto Stanford, over the hill to Maple, and then turn left on Maple, turn right on Thornapple, left. I mean, they find their way through. So we do see there is a lot more traffic in this particular block section. It doesn't mean that the other isn't also more than average, but it's just not as much as this block. Okay. Any other comments? Okay, well, I'm also in favor for the reasons that Rich, you laid out very well. And I would also ask, I don't know if Howard is still on the call. You can take off yes, he is still there. Okay. He may not want to listen, but since no good deed goes unpunished. But I think it is appropriate for the PSC to take a look at our policy. Because this, I think, really brought home to me how we've previously focused on daily numbers. And we really do have to take, the weekly numbers are more dramatic. And I want us to think about changes in that and what would be warranted. One other thing I would mention, which Dave, you've enlightened me on, is that speed bumps generally are, slow cars down to 20 to 25 miles an hour. So our speed limit is 20. So, it will probably get cars that are going 35, the outliers that are going at 35 will certainly slow down. The cars that are coming by at between 20 and 25, hard to tell, but certainly it will take care of the outliers and slow them down, and that could still be a fair number. So with that, Todd, we need a resolution to have a public hearing on the speed bumps next month.
We do not. No.
There's agreement that the council will hold a public.
Correct.
Schedule it. Good. One question, I guess, related to the speed hump request is if the speed humps are approved, the speed board that we've now put on the north or the west side of East probably will need to be removed.
Yeah, take it out.
Take it out.
Yeah, take it out. That would be my view. Is that fair enough? I don't think we would need a speed board plus bumps.
I don't think so, because when the speed board it was surprising because the speed board didn't actually, what was the,
yeah, we just because we were curious, right. We ran a couple days of traffic after the speed board was reinstalled following the speed study that was done without it. And the speeds were nearly identical. Right. So there wasn't a statistical difference when it really installed.
Yeah. So,
just a point of clarity, what exactly is a speed board?
Flashing. Yeah.
That's all. It collects that data.
Got it.
Right. It's the one that automatically spews out tax on the road once you go by the the one other thing I thought was interesting about the data, and actually I think supports the decision that we took a few years ago to lower the speed from 25 to 20, is that notwithstanding the fact it's still a problem. So I think you've taken on board, Lee, that we're supportive of a public hearing for speed bumps. But I thought was fascinating was that in our traffic measurements of 2017, we had 220, 250 cars a day in excess of 25 miles per hour. And now we have 85 cars a day. So the only thing that's really been material is reducing the speed limit from 25 to 20. And so that has actually helped a lot. And I just thought that was pretty interesting because at the time we did it, we sort of asked ourselves, well, will anyone really pay any attention? And the answer is, yeah, they do. We might wish they paid even more attention, but they're obviously paying attention. So that was a good result in terms of our having changed the policy. Okay, we're set on that. Good, thank you. Turning now to the speed camera contract. Todd, we look to you for an update on where things stand. This is for Bradley.
Yes, thanks, Barney. As I indicated in my manager's report, this shouldn't be a long discussion. I just want to give you an indication of what due diligence the staff has done since the last meeting to review speed camera vendors and available contracts that the town could ride or bridge or however you want to phrase it that are currently in place with other Maryland municipalities. We identified primarily two vendors for speed cameras, one which has a sole source contract with the county and another which has approximately 17 contracts with most other Maryland municipalities currently, including and Maryland entities, including SHA and Prince George's, Anne Arundel County, and Chevy Chase Village, Gaithersburg, Rockville. And we met with the vendors, we reviewed the contracts, we reviewed specifications, technological and otherwise, and we've come to the conclusion that it's likely in the town's best interest to engage in contract negotiations with the vendor that currently is under contract with most Maryland municipalities. Technology between the two vendors is essentially the same. We can get into the technicalities, but it's really not necessary here because we're looking at monitoring one lane of traffic. On Bradley, we don't need features that would allow us to monitor multiple lanes of traffic or traffic in both directions. So the technology is highly capable with both vendors. There's somewhat less of a disturbance in terms of the actual equipment with the vendor that I would recommend that we begin negotiations of a contract with than the other equipment from the other vendor. Software effectively meets our needs. There are some things that the county wanted from their prior vendor that they couldn't provide, like real-time data, like in a network operations center of data on vehicle passes and the speed of passes and 85th percentile speeds and all of that, which we don't need for purposes of having an operational speed camera that issues citations and meets the criteria for issuance established by the state. With respect to cost, there is a pretty big delta there. We can likely ride a contract that Chevy Chase Village currently has for their speed cameras on Connecticut Avenue. It would cost, when the original contract was signed, the village was paying $4,750 per camera per the contract. That's been adjusted for inflation over the last 2 years. So now they're paying $4,718 per camera.
Todd, excuse me for interrupting. Could you explain what you mean by writing a contract?
Bridging a contract, taking advantage of already competitively big contracts so that we don't have to do our own solicitation. For example, Chevy Chase Village has a contract with one vendor that's been competitively bid. and we can actually ride or take advantage of that contract and all its provisions and the pricing schedule as well, so that we don't have to go out through the entire bid process.
Good. I just want to make sure that was clear to everybody what that term implied. Okay.
The vendor that the county currently has, the new vendor charges $8,100 per camera per month, all inclusive. Substantial difference. That cost goes down substantially in the option years. Each contract likely would be three-year term with likely 2 option years where pricing can be negotiable or it's established by the contract. But I think we're best suited and served by going with the lower cost vendor for the first 3 years of the contract that is offered by the vendor for Chevy Chase Village and 17 other municipalities in Montgomery County. We would also benefit from a cost neutrality clause with the vendor that provides this service to the majority of Montgomery County municipalities and Maryland municipalities. Cost neutrality clause basically means that we would only pay up to the cost of the camera per month, plus any carry forward balance in future months once we make revenue that would cover the cost of the camera. We would never basically be underwater, and we would only pay up to what we owe per month for the camera, even if it doesn't generate that much revenue. But there would be a carryover balance that would be carried over from month to month until the camera generated enough revenue to pay back that carryover. But if at the end of the contract that money wasn't made up, it would be wiped from the books. So there was no possibility we would ever be underwater with the cost of this program. So after all this due diligence that we've done, the only request I'm making to the council is to direct me to draft a contract for your review. And hopefully we can have a ratified contract from a timeline perspective. Hoping we could have a ratified contract, just going to follow most of the major provisions. There are termination for cause and termination for convenience provisions, meaning if the camera didn't generate enough revenue, even though there's a cost neutrality clause, we could still get out of the contract for convenience purposes with a very short notification period. And so it's very safe for the town to enter into such a contract with these provisions in it. So the only thing I'm asking council tonight is to direct me to negotiate a contract with a vendor that currently serves the majority of Maryland municipalities, and to present it to you for review, and we can discuss it at the January meeting. Likely, from a timeline perspective, could have a ratified contract if everything goes as planned by the end of January. The other benefit of the vendor that I would propose we use is that they would make application to the SHA, which is a requirement for installation of cameras. They would do all the legwork for us. And the other vendor didn't offer that either. So
Todd, would they only start after we sign with them, or could they start earlier?
They will start the application process only after they've signed with us, because it's quite an intensive process. They have to do specification plans, engineering plans, and all of that. And they don't want to obviously incur the cost of all the engineering work and the specific plans SHA requires before they have a contract in place.
Would they also be doing the training of our staff?
All inclusive training. They would be showing up in court for us. It's an all inclusive training and representation cost.
Thanks.
So if we have a ratified contract by the end of January, hopefully they would begin in earnest to make application to the SHA for the speed camera. It's about 45 days, they said, that they would take them to pull together an application maximum. SHA, when we met with them about the Bradley Lane safety study, indicated that it would be 60 to 90 days to review the application. There is a component then that has to go through engineering review. We're not certain how long that might take, but suffice to say that the timeline we've discussed all along with respect to entering into a contract for speed cameras, and actually from contract signing to operations, likely will put us around next summer. And And so that's what we're looking at. We clearly think this one contract with this one vendor has an upper hand with respect not only to cost and cost neutrality, but also the equipment is completely sufficient for our needs since we're only monitoring one lane of traffic on Bradley, and not multiple lanes or not bi-directional either. And so with that, I'll ask if there are any questions or clarifications I can provide, but I'll proceed to negotiate a contract, barring any opposition from the council.
Questions, comments?
Just remind me where the intersection is.
Or we're placing a camera on Bradley Lane on the north side of Bradley Lane to monitor westbound traffic. So it will be placed at the intersection of Maple and Bradley on the southwest corner of Maple and, well, it's not really, it's the southwest, sorry, southeast, excuse me, southeast corner of Maple and Bradley. If you're driving.
That's where that accident happened.
Wait, you mean northeast corner of Maple and?
Well, it will be, yeah, it was, yeah, there's not really an intersection there. It's only right. So it would be northeast. Yes.
The camera will be on the northeast looking,
northeast, corner of that.
Looking east. So
and the rationale for that placement is due to the accident that happened with the.
It would be looking west, monitoring westbound traffic, Barney. Yeah. And it will be on the north side, not the northeast.
Monitoring westbound traffic, but it's looking east so it can monitor the westbound. Or is it, how does it, which direction does the camera face?
The camera will face westbound to monitor westbound speeds.
Yes. Okay. We're on the same page. All right.
What's the impetus for that placement?
Oh, Barney, you want to take that? Do you want me to take it?
Please. Go ahead, John.
The impetus is the multiple accidents that have occurred on Bradley over the course of the last few months or year, prevailing speeds, the narrowness of the roadway, the immediate adjacency of the sidewalk to the roadway, and pedestrian safety concerns, and general concerns of Bradley Lane residents of public safety. There is a camera the county has installed on the south side to monitor eastbound speeds. And we'd like to put a camera on the north side to monitor to westbound speeds.
And that's much more important to our residents, obviously, because that's where their front yards are. So, yeah, and then it's also tricky to find a place in the public right of way to put the camera. So that's why the apron where Maple spreads out is a good location, that area. Yeah. Good. Any other comments? Well, I want to give you a stretch goal, Todd. We have a council meeting on January 14th. Can we approve the contract on the 14th?
You'll need to review it beforehand, but if you want to.
Now that means you get it to us on the 10th, all right?
Well, it'll be provided definitely to you on the Friday before the meeting, the draft contract. But if, yeah, absolutely. If you want to.
I'd love us to be able to approve it on the 14th and have you get going on it. So
yeah, the other benefit is that the vendor that I would propose we use will also draft the contract for our review, and Ron will have to review it and ensure all the appropriate provisions are in that accord to state law, as well as all.
Absolutely. Yeah, especially if our counterparty is drafting the agreement, we better have our attorney looking at it closely.
Yeah, whether that can be done in the intervening Christmas holiday and New Year's holiday might be tight, but we'll try.
That's why it's a stretch goal, but we'd really like to be able to say that we've taken an important step forward here and something that we know matters enormously to the safety of the people in Bradley. So it'd be good. All right, excellent. The only other thing that we have on the agenda, I want to report on the Bethesda Market Park, which I've mentioned to each of you in separate conversations, but I want to make sure it's out in the public. As you may know, if you look back at the history of our work on this project, there's always been a great deal of hurry up and wait. And we thought we were making a great deal of progress in the summer and fall of 2024, which is when the town increased its commitment from $4.5 to $7.5 million. And we were really kicking off with a great deal of site plan work and getting excited about the fact that with the enlarged budget, we'd be able to really get the amenities we wanted in the park, including the water feature and some other things that would be good for kids. And then everything stalled, and it stalled for a number of months because the county and the developers were unable to come to terms on what the developers put forth as my view was a reasonable expectation, that as the developers proceeded with the expenses of the site plan, which is $3 or $4 million, it's an expensive proposition, that when they came to designing the underground garage, which would be a public garage, that they would get reimbursed on a steady state basis from the county for the design work associated with that garage. Much the same way that they had already struck an agreement with the Parks Department for the Parks Department to reimburse the developers for the work that they were doing on designing the park. County took forever. Took forever. Finally, that got agreed in principle by last June or so. Then the developers stopped, and we weren't at all clear why the developers were not going forward, other than assuming the obvious of just the difficult financial and economic situation and so forth. Well, just last week, their reason became very clear. What they've negotiated for successfully is to purchase what we call the Ford building, other people call the Darth Vader building, but it's that ugly building on the corner of on the northeast corner of Leland and Wisconsin. The equity was essentially wiped out. They bought the building from the bank, presumably at some substantial discount and buying the mortgage. But anyway, that's now owned by Bernstein Management Corporation. I think this is a very exciting development for several reasons. First of all, it certainly shows commitment on the part of the Bernstein Management Corporation to continue with the project. You don't go buy a building just to sit on it. Secondly, it allows them to think through an optimization of a much larger parcel, which could lead to some very interesting redesigns that I would suggest we hope both will improve the economic viability, but also potentially allow for some other public amenities or public benefits. And what those will be and how we can negotiate for them remains to be seen. So it's all very embryonic. But to take one example, the park narrows a great deal as you go from Willow to Leland. Maybe there's an opportunity to widen the park a bit. Maybe there's ability to widen the street, Leland, so you can have more lanes of traffic getting to Wisconsin. Another thought is that we'd be able to assure ourselves that all the truck traffic making deliveries to the Farm Women's Market would indeed be able to go underground from Leland and not have to come off Willow and use that Warnoff on the surface, which would interrupt the flow of pedestrians between the market and the park. So those are just thoughts, very preliminary, but this will obviously cause some fairly significant redesign of the overall project. Not redesign of the market itself, nor redesign of the park itself, other than potentially maybe expanding it a bit. But obviously for the developers, they've got a lot of work to do to re-optimize the whole residential part, which after all is 90% of the cost. Or I don't know if it's 90, but it's the great bulk of the cost. So in any event, what I've been told is that they will be getting to work in the first quarter of the year. I think the first quarter does not mean January 1st. I suspect when people say first quarter, they tend to mean the latter part of that 3-month period. But at some point early next year, we should be able to re-engage and talk again about how the project is going to go forward. It's still going to be a very drawn out affair. I think just from what I know of the planning process, we'd still be looking at probably not, a site plan would not be submitted to the planning department till sometime, I'll say, in the fall of next year, 2026. It then takes at least 4 months for the planning department to review and bring something to the planning board. So maybe that happens early 2027. Then there's at least a year to pull permits and to arrange financing. So we're looking at construction beginning sometime in early 2028. They had previously estimated that putting up the original plan involving the market and the parking lot right behind the market and the Villain and Saints site would take about 2.5 years to build. One presumes that that now is somewhat longer because they have to tear down the Ford building and everything else. So if they start in early 2028, that's 28, 29, 30, perhaps into 31 to finish that. And then, as I've explained before, they will not close off and redevelop the park area in the other parking lot between Leland and Willow, between Leland and Walsh, until after the new underground garage is open. So they always want some parking available. So that will be the last bit, and I suspect will not be done until much later in 2031, maybe get into 2032. Anyway, it's a long extended timeline, but it's a big project. And as I say, I think the thing that's perhaps the most important statement to make is that this does represent a very substantial incremental commitment by the Bernstein Group to this project for this whole redevelopment, and that's to the good. So we just have to stay the course. In the meantime, the money we've appropriated or backed by resolution earns 3.8% interest. So there's no harm in that. That's a fair amount of coin that accumulates year over year. And we want to obviously be, and we will continue to have our seat at the table in respect to the protection of what we want in the park and in the negotiation of the contracts.
Yeah, you kind of tied into that, but not tied into it, is the Capitol Crescent Trail.
Yes.
And I don't know if you've all noticed, but at the Elm Street Park, they've marked off all the areas where they're going to do some demolition to put in the trails that we wanted, taking down trees. So they're going ahead with that.
Yeah.
Irrespective of what happens with the Corso.
You don't mean
Not the
Corso, I
Corso,
mean with the Farmlands
Farmlands
Market.
Market,
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. Plus the construction of the new playgrounds, the north end of the Elm Street Park.
Sign.
Oh, good.
They're showing the schematic of it.
That's
Yeah.
progress.
Yeah.
That sounds like commitment.
It does.
Okay. Is there anything else that anyone wishes to raise tonight? Todd, is there anything else that we need to cover? Todd?
Would you like to discuss the crosswalk on?
Oh, yes. I'm glad you brought that up. I'd forgotten that. The PSC has recommended a crosswalk west at the corner. And I think, as Todd has pointed out, normally this can be done administratively, but we know a lot of residents are interested in it. So that was something we thought we might have a public hearing about in January, with the presumption that we will approve it. It would just go straight across from that new corner that's been developed of the house that we were talking about earlier tonight. Okay.
Okay.
Good. So yes, we'll take that up in a public hearing in January to approve a crosswalk there. One of the things you're looking for. Okay.
Great.
Great. Thank you all. Meeting adjourned.
Good night.